From the Ghost Tactical Production Studio, welcome to Tactical Tuesday, streaming live on YouTube and simulcasting as always on GunChannels.com. To check out our entire lineup of videos, podcasts, and live shows, please visit our website, www.ghosttacticalproductions.com. What's going on, my Ghost Squad? Welcome to Tactical Tuesday. Today is Tuesday. Is it June now? Goodness gracious, it is June 4th, 2019. We are live, as always, on YouTube and simulcasting, as always, over on GunChannels.com. And if you are not familiar with GunChannels yet, then I really don't need to tell you anymore. I'm going to put the link out there and do what you got to do, because if you're not aware, GunChannels.com is a great pro 2A, pro gun, pro Second Amendment community started by G-Webs almost 6 years ago. You can find out any kind of information. There's always a 24-hour lobby chat going. So if you have any questions, you're getting into guns, or you just have questions on certain aspects of firearms and the culture, there's always someone there to help you out. So go check us out over there. Speaking of gun channels, let's say hello to everybody over there on the chat. You got G's over there, Pete's over there, Kingpin, and Gizzard Gary is over there, and they're having a nice little discussion. Let's say hello to everybody on the YouTube side while notifications go out. Gun Loving Grandpa was out there first. He says first. Guitar Man Pete's out there. Gizzard Gary is working double duty as always. Joe Ziola's out there. JS, Jason Stewart. Let's see here. D-Temp's out there. Off the X. What up, Lance? Did some shooting him the other day for a couple hours with Lance and another buddy. So go check him out over there. Off the X. D-Temp. I think I said D-Temp. I might not have, but if I didn't, D-Temp's out there. JJ's out there. What's up, JJ? Vandalistica. What's up, Jared? All the way down from Australia, checking it out. So looking forward to hopefully seeing Jared this November at Wanamaker if he still can make it. But welcome back, my friend. Good seeing you again. Hope everything's going well down there. Now let's see here. WB's out there. The Gun Cleaners. What up, Rod? I want to see Rod here in a few weeks down in Texas. We're going to go do some shooting down at Charlie's place. But looking forward to seeing Rod again. David Osgood. And David says, this is why I have been saying that take the guns first. Trump must be replaced. We'll get into that. SS Palm, what's up? Good evening. Good evening. G-Webs is out there as well. That guy's wife. Hello, Armintia. How are you, dear? And 9mm Mia. What's going on, Mia? How you doing, kid? And let's see. Am I missing anybody else? Andrew Faulkner's out there. Two live moves out there. Andrew Faulkner. I think I just said Andrew Faulkner. So, yeah, at this point, we're going to talk tonight about the 2020 election. And as we know, it's a year and a half away or so. And, you know, we would always like to think we have a Republican in the White House and things might be good. But with a Democratic Congress right now, or a Democratic House, I should say, over there, is the 2020 election in play for the Democrats? And we'll get into that. What can we do over the next year and a half that can help us maintain our gun rights? And whether it's electing the right person or a different person or whatever, we will talk about all about that. If you're watching or listening in replay, if you have any questions or comments, please use them down below. If you're live and you want to ask a question, please tag one of us in the panel, and we will make sure that we get those questions asked. Tony says, sorry, can't stay around for the Trump bashing tonight. It could be interesting because of the suppressor thing that's going out, but we're gonna talk about all that stuff. But before we get going, let's say hello to our esteemed panel from Arizona. We got the Godfather himself. What's up, G?
Couldn't find the mute button. Thanks for the invite.
You got it, buddy. And from the great state of Texas, the tactical virus himself. What's up, Clover?
Hey, good to be here.
Everything good down there weather-wise?
Getting hot.
Okay, man, we had a storm just come in about half an hour ago. Man, it was pretty bad. I was over on Instagram, and I saw that Roosted had a tornado hit his house, so he was going live to show the damage of his roof. So if you're out there right now, I know we've got some weather coming in the next 4 days. Has a bunch of rain coming back in. If you're not aware of what's going on in the central part of America with Oklahoma, Arkansas, different states, and there's some serious rain and some dangerous weather and flooding going on. So make sure you keep everybody in your thoughts and prayers.
As a public service, then, and to raise funds, what I'll offer is I'll take one of the large flat rate boxes and I'll take it outside in the middle of the day and scoop a bunch of 90-something degree dry air in there, box it all up, and ship it to you the next day. Yeah.
I would love it. I need about a week and a half of nothing but hot, dry weather. That would be wonderful. That would do everything around here some good. I get a lot of texts. I've been getting a lot of emails from people all over the country, which I appreciate. Thank you for everyone that's doing that. Just checking on it. I guess there's national news about the flooding here in Arkansas, and the Arkansas River has broken through several levees, and a lot of people are out of their homes being evacuated, and it's a mess here in Arkansas. A lot of people are checking on me. Luckily, I'm okay. I'm about an hour north of the Arkansas River, plus I'm up in the mountains, so it's going to take a serious Noah's Ark type flooding to reach me. We are getting a lot of rain since, I want to say, beginning of the year. We've had over 60 inches of rain, so we've had our fair share of rain, but we have not been affected by the river going through the levees and all of that stuff. So thank you once again. Thank you everyone for checking on me. I always want to say I'm safe, we're good, and let's go on. Tonight, guys, we're going to talk a little bit about the 2020 election. And obviously, we have a Republican president in there, but a lot of people are not necessarily happy with some of the gun decisions, the firearms Second Amendment decisions that the sitting President Trump, has been making in the last couple of years. Obviously, we had a shift of power in the House of Representatives to the Democratic side. And we're going to talk about the 2020 election. Is the 2020 election in play? Or do people still think that Trump's going to win, or what's going to happen? The next question is going to be, is Trump going to be, for the Second Amendment community, is Trump our best decision? Is he our best choice? And I know a lot of people are not single issue voters. I'm not a single issue voter, but some people could be. But we're going to talk a little bit about what we can do for the next year and a half as a gun community to make sure that our rights are protected. I want to start out with G, because, me, Clover, and G have had this discussion before about, different things happening within the community, whether it's the NRA or whatever. But let me ask you this, and I'll ask both of you this, but let's start with G. Does the fragile state of the NRA, does that have anything to do, or does that bring the 2020 election into play, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, 2020 election is going to happen. What do you mean into play?
I'm saying, is the 2020 election in play as far as Trump may not, people have been saying that Trump's going to get reelected pretty much hands down because the Democrats can't find a candidate right now and all that. So I think a lot of people are assuming that Trump will get reelected. But is that the case? Do you think that the Republican Party will maintain the White House?
Well, I got to take what I told you off air. I'm a one-track voter, but I also don't pay attention to the details along the way. So I'll start paying attention much later in the game and not wasting my effort on the what I consider to be the theater of it all, or maybe that's not the right word, but there's a lot of engineered stuff making money all during this time when people worry about the little bits of, I don't know, all the stuff that happens a year and a half away. So yeah, I just don't know. I literally don't put much energy at all, and I'll tune out, because and it's not like I am intentionally ignorant of it. It's just that over the years of the cycles, I'm old and I've seen the cycles come and go. I want to have influence in it, so I'm paying attention to how we can learn to work together, so that when there's something to say, we've figured out how to work together. Because we usually are caught off guard, where by the time something comes out that's worth saying, we're all running around like chickens with our heads cut off. Excuse me, Gary.
Now, and we'll bring that up about what we can do for the next year and a half. That'll definitely be part of the conversation. Clover, what about you? is the 2020 election, which seemingly people thought 6 months ago was pretty much a wrapped up deal. As far as the gun community goes, is the 2020, is that a worry for you right now, or are we still pretty secure in Trump?
I don't think it's changed. I don't think it's changed. I mean, it's always something that you have to look out for, um, because you never know. I mean, look at Obama, right? He came out of nowhere, so you never know. And so you have to be vigilant. You have to be paying attention. You have to watch. As far as has anything changed in the last few months, or has anything changed because of what Trump said the other day? I don't think so. I really don't. Um, the biggest problem that I see is that I got to be careful because I want to say we, and I'm not a Republican. But the biggest problem that I think I see is that the Republicans, the last, what, two, well, I guess technically the last two elections, the Republicans have kind of let the Democrats defeat themselves. And I think that's a very dangerous tactic. And I think that, we have to mobilize and get involved and make sure people get out to vote and do a lot of different things and sort of bring an offense instead of just letting them kind of self implode. And as far as a generalization of what I see happening, I don't think it's an issue of, well, Trump's going to run away with it. I think it's going to be, again, more of an issue of the Democrats are going to implode.
Yeah, and that's a fair point. I think that we saw a little bit of that possibly happening in the last election with the Republicans when there were so many people that were throwing their hats in the ring. I guess you could say the good thing that we had happen was we had a very strong personality alpha male in Donald Trump who basically took over and said, okay, all you guys that are just pretending, go away. Um, and that kind of solidified the Republican Party. What you're seeing now on the Democratic side is everyone's throwing their hats in the ring. And we've talked about this on numerous occasions about how Donald Trump, in my opinion, has changed politics to a certain extent because, excuse me, Donald Trump is not a conservative. He may be fiscally conservative and all that, but he is a moderate at best. Actually, for a lot of his voting life, he voted Democrat. Now, as a business person, he supported both candidates. As a business person, he had to do that. But I think he voted Democrat for a lot of his life. But now that he has taken the Republican Party and maybe moved it towards the center of the moderates, he's forced the Democratic Party to go extreme left to get away from him. If you're a Democrat and you don't want to be associated in any way, shape, or form with Donald Trump, they're going to go socialism. They've gone extreme left to try to break away from Trump. So he's changed politics in a lot of ways. But I think what's happening now is you've got so many different people throwing their names in the hat that it's almost turning into a dumpster fire, and we're already only a year and a half away. It's a long time away in the political scheme, but this is about when all of the campaigns kick off because you're a year out from the primaries. And so you're going to start seeing a lot of the political rhetoric, a lot of the political ads coming out, trying to people getting their stump speeches done. A lot of people trying to make, the public appearances, trying to get their name and faces out there. They said they could have up to 30 to 40 different candidates put their name in the hat for the Democratic Party. So I do agree with you're saying that I think that they will stumble and I think that they will have issues. But the reason why I bring up the NRA is this: with all of the negative press, if you want to call it that the NRA is getting right now, and it's not just from outside the NRA, it's from within our own gun community, are fed up, frustrated with some of the financial dealings and some of the elitist attitudes that the hierarchy of the NRA are having right now. The worst thing that I think that could happen for the gun community is that the NRA goes away. And I know I'm going to say, let's burn it. Let's start over. We can't afford, in my opinion, cannot afford the NRA to go away. It's been around too long. It still holds too much clout and power, especially in Washington. But what if it goes away? And the reason why I bring this up is at that point, it's not far-fetched to think the Democrats could come out and say, look, we have shot down, destroyed, and done away with the NRA. They could use this as political clout within their own ranks and the undecideds and say, see, the NRA isn't as strong. We defeated them. Now let's go after the guns. And that actually might resonate with a lot of people. So I'm going to start back again with G. Not saying the 2020 election, just in general, how important in your mind is resurrecting and rebuilding the NRA to keep our community stable?
Well, first off, let me apologize to Clover because I'm going to answer this one completely and he won't have to be able to say anything. So,
okay, all right. I like it. I like it.
But I don't know. I mean, as much as I hate to see a thing that's as old as it is and, you know, significant as it is, at the other hand, you can't take it, that scenario from just one's point of view. So if there is no NRA, why did the NRA fail? It failed because a whole bunch of people who are already members don't do anything, and they're going to know it, right? That it's going to hit home if their inaction results in the loss of the NRA, even though they're only going to accept 1/5 millionth of the blame each. That's relevant, right? The second part is it's failing because of 2 people or 3 people and a corrupt executive board that allows those couple of people to screw around, right? And then poor long-term business strategy, that's coming to a head. And so the reason it failed isn't because there's a lack of interest in the NRA. It didn't fail because there's a overwhelming majority of people want to get rid of guns. It didn't fail. Or if it fails, right, we're talking the scenario if it's gone, it didn't fail because of a failure on the gun side or because any of those things. It failed because of 2 individuals. So you've got the fact that a bunch of gun owners are going to watch it fail, and they're going to have to, they're going to be called to action, I suspect, if they watch it fail on their watch, right, or they allow it to fail on their watch. And then you've got the fact that it fails because just a couple of people are at fault. And then, you're going to have the antis taking credit for it, which is going to also rally the troops. So I guess that's what I'm saying is if the NRA fails, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. Remember what happened in 2013 when Obama suggested he was going to do some executive actions, maybe, right? And he was going to start having meetings to talk about this. We rallied together at a grassroots level. You take the NRA away. I understand that Trump is a factor there, and let's not forget to bash Trump with Tony. But let's remember that if you remove the NRA, you get 5 million members who are offended and are going to be fighting back, and all the people that are right now not just watching from the sidelines with opinions or not, and they're going to have they're going to be called to action. So I think you don't just have a bunch of gun owners who go, oh shucks, and kick the ground. I think you get a bunch of gun owners who rally back, ideally, way more than they ever did in 2013.
I'm going to go to Clover here in a second. I want to address something that AWAG just asked. He said, do you think the GOA would get more powerful? I'm assuming he means if the NRA is abolished and goes away. Obviously, the numbers will have to grow for the GOA because aside from the NRA, you have the GOA and the SAF are the 2, within the community, I should say, the 2 probably the biggest dogs left. There are a lot of great ones out there. FPC's one of them. There's a lot of great local, state, and all that. But I would have to say, I mean, naturally, yes, the GOA's numbers are going to grow because the average person that doesn't necessarily devote money or time to the GOA or SAF, the NRA is gone and they still want to be active in the community. They're going to look for the next thing, and the GOA and SAF will probably be those 2 things that step up. That being said, do I think they grow as far as power? That's a whole different ball game. It's not like the NRA just came upon the political clout and the, for lack of a better term, the power in Washington as a lobby organization in the last few years. Remember, the NRA's been around for 170 something years. So all of this took place, and it didn't just take place overnight. It took this power clout was spread out over a long time. So do I think that the GOA or the SAF or anyone is going to immediately replace the NRA as the power arm of the Second Amendment in Washington. No, I don't. I hate to say that. I'm not saying they can't. I'm just saying I don't think it will happen, because a lot of what the NRA has done over years and decades isn't just going to happen overnight. So I hope that's my opinion. And G and Clover, you can mention that next time if you want to bring that up as well. But I want to go back to Clover, because now that G's answered that, I don't know, did he take your entire answer away? He said you weren't going to have anything else to say, but I have a sneaky feeling that you might have something to say.
No, I mean, you just opened a can of worms from me, and then the chat out there kind of aligns with some stuff that the chat's saying. And then, yeah. So a couple things right now that's annoying to me, and I challenge everybody to sit down and actually think about it. And if you're mad at the NRA, which we all are, rationalize your position as to why you're mad and why you're upset. Educate yourself, research, do what you've got to do, and be clear on that. And the reason I say that is we've got so many different factions that say burn it down, and they've all got a different reason as to why they want to burn it down. The NRA's been doing the same stuff for years. Okay, well, that's not what's caused them to have problems now. It's the misappropriation of funding and misuse of funds and money and all of that kind of stuff that's caused the issues that have them on the brink right now, have them teetering. It has nothing to do with people backing out of it because of their legislative hijinks over the years or the decades. So, you know, you got to compartmentalize those different things. So we can't fix it. You know, we can't, if we get rid of the idiots that have caused the big problem, which is the big problem right now, is those monetary issues. If we can get rid of those people, then maybe we can correct course on the stuff previously, all of the legislative BS. With that said, you also have to distinguish that the modern ILA is different than the previous NRA for 150 years or 140 years or whatever it's been. Two different things there. So yes, I agree that if you go back in history to NFA and you read transcripts of committee hearings and you do all of that kind of stuff, there's some people saying some really stupid things that are up there kind of representing the firearm people, you know, through the NRA. But realize at the time that's not the ILA. That was not their goal, was not to lobby. They were called in to testify on these things. It was not until modern ILA that they really got their hands in the political cookie jar. So two different situations there, and to lump 170 some odd years of NRA into just one big bowl. Like I said, there is so many complexities with this, and I really do challenge people to figure it out, to learn it, to educate yourself, to understand all this, and then make your arguments. If you feel the same way, cool. And then to your point, with the GOA, with one of these other ones coming up, getting on a rise as far as power, the NRA did not seize the political clout, the political power that they had. You're correct. In just a few years, you know, just overnight, or even since the ILA has come about, the NRA did that by social change on the ground. And that's with the efforts that are noble and that still work with the NRA. That's what gave them the clout. They come in, they said, look at all the people we've trained. Look at all the people that we represent. Look at all the people we've taught safety to. Look at all these. They were a huge demographic. And that's where the power came from. Because they had that power long before the NRA was established. I mean, the ILA was established. So long. That's a long way for me to say that no, I don't think the GOA, all of them other organizations, I don't know of any that is really actively pursuing the type of, you know, in the neighborhood, in the communities, you know, hands-on familiarization, safety training, outreach, stuff like that, to even start building off of like the NRA did. And that's the only way I see to build that kind of clout. So no, I don't think that they would ever get that big. That being said, there's a flip side to that. If they do ever get that big, you've got all the problems, the monetary issues we're dealing now with the NRA. guess what? That increases the probability of getting some Yahoo in there that, guess what, does the exact same thing. Increases the odds of him Yahoo getting there and letting money or his personal opinions or whatever dictate where that organization is going to stand on policy or legislation. And then finally, do I think the NRA being here or not being here is a factor in the 2020? No, I don't. I don't think it played a significant role when Trump was elected, and I don't think it plays a significant role this time either. Now, that being said, I agree with G-Webs that it not being here could play a little bit of a role when it comes to Democrats being able to beat the war drum. But you also said something earlier too, that when you were talking about Democrats and you were talking about that Overton window, that 80% or 60% or whatever number we want to put on that's in that middle. Trump is middle left, right? He's centrist at best. A lot of these candidates that you see, they're not completely left on anything. The problem is, you're right, the Trump haters have tried to distance themselves. The hardcore Democrats have tried to distance themselves from Trump so much. They've ran so left that most of the candidates that you see, they're not even appealing to that demographic. They're that far gone. So they're still more appealing, I think, to middle of the road people. And at the end of the day, we've talked about this a lot. At the end of the day, I hate to say this, but the truth is the truth. At the end of the day, yes, in our echo chamber, yes, on these chats, yes, on these live streams, yes, on our Instagram posts, we see it, we live it, we breathe it. It's everything. It's our number one issue. It is not. The Second Amendment doesn't even crack the top 5 and quite possibly even the top 10 for the majority of people in the country. What do we need to change? That's what we need to change. That's what we need to be working on.
That's a great point. Let's see. AWAG out there says to the panel, what can we do to fix the, and I don't want to make this an NRA chat. Okay. That's not the intention, but I think the NRA right now is, when you talk about the 2020 election, as far as gun rights, the NRA could, in my opinion, will have something to do with it. But he says, how do we fix the NRA from playing politics with our gun rights? That's a question that we have all been talking about on so many different chats and podcasts and shows and whatever you want to call it for a while now. And I honestly don't think there's a simple answer. It's a combination of a lot of things. And that being said, I want to go back to Clover real quick, and I'll go back to G after that. But I want to kind of parlay what you just finished off with. We need to change the discussion and bring the Second Amendment and the gun rights talk to the election, make it more of an issue on the national level. And I'm going to ask you this, parlaying that into this question here about how do we fix the NRA from playing politics with our rights? How do we fix that in your opinion? And two, does that bring the discussion of the Second Amendment to a more higher level discussion in the national scene? Uh-oh, we lose Clove?
Oh, I was muted, man. I was just going, man. I was ready for it.
And you were probably talking some stuff that could
it was epic. It was epic. Now I've had a brain fart, so you'll just have to deal with gibberish from here on out. I'm sorry.
Replay button.
Right? No, I think that in saving the NRA, I don't know. I don't even know if saving is the right word. But I think that the first thing we've got to do is, so many people out there, like I said, it's the whole idea of the NRA, how it works, everything else. There's so much misinformation and everything else is out there. And then there's so many people also, call them buds, I do, that don't pay attention. They live their lives, they do their thing, and they go to work, and just like they vote on their politician to handle things for them in their state, or in Washington, they vote for the board members or whatever, and then they just take it upon themselves. They expect that, they're handling the Second Amendment issues for them. They don't follow up. There's no real vigilance there. And again, it goes back into changing that culture. Now, how do we do that? We've got to do that at a grassroots level. Well, who's been doing it at a grassroots level for 176 years, right? The NRA has been doing it on that level. So that right there tells you, that it's something that's worth saving. And in educating those people and being able to bring people in, continue to bring people in on that grassroots level that truly understand the Second Amendment, and with ousting the yahoos, potentially getting some control back, getting some transparency back, then at that point you've got a membership base that is involved. If you've got a membership base, because I hate to tell you, I love the fact that these other people tout, well, I give to the GOA, I give to the Second Amendment Foundation, I give to this, I give to that. That's great. But are you active, involved, and paying any more attention than you were when you were involved with the NRA, when you were paying dues to the NRA? That's the question. That's the issue. And so, if we can get people that are members of these organizations, but speak up as members of these organizations. And I'm not talking about bad mouthing on social media or cutting a YouTube video or some crazy thing like that. I'm talking about writing letters, going face to face, speaking directly with the people involved, not some general social media, IT person or some person on the phone that's hired to do marketing and fundraising for them, but actually talking to the people that matter, no matter the organization. And an organization is only as good as its members. And I think that if we can better the membership of the NRA, then we can get a lot of the things we want eventually out of the NRA, including good decisions when it comes to, do we support this, or do we support that, or do we fight against this, or do we take this to court, and all of that kind of stuff. And that's something that honestly, again, I go back to the vast majority of their efforts over the years have been, that educational training, competition, ground level stuff. It hasn't been political, really. And, I don't think we've ever seen a time where a vast majority of the membership were educated, aware, and actually holding the NRA accountable from a membership level.
Those are great points, and I think that should resonate with a lot of people, because there's a lot of people that talk about what they would like to do or what they are doing and all that. But if you're not focused, and if we're as a community not focused on how to make change and all that, then we're really fighting against ourselves and fighting that upstream, if you want to call it that. We're fighting against the tide. I want to bring G in, because he was talking about maybe not necessarily paying much attention to the political side right now, being so far out of the election, but he's more focused on how the gun community can do certain things. So I want to bring him in and say, what do you think, kind of piggyback off what Clover was saying, how, in your opinion, do we as a community make the Second Amendment more relevant in the national scene?
Grow up, mature as a community, and get past all the bickering that you're witnessing right now, and the hone the abilities to communicate with each other so that we can more effectively be united when we communicate with the antis.
Yeah, there's, it's going to happen in every chat that people are going to get in, especially something like this, a political debate. People are going to talk about different things, and there's going to be some things that are said by multiple parties that other people aren't going to like. And that's part of what freedom of speech is. But understand that freedom of speech also has to do with, you can say what you want to as long as you can handle the repercussions. And so I will piggyback on that and say this. If you're out there and you're listening to this or watching this live or in replay, and something is being said that you don't like, then that's okay. But having tolerance to what somebody else is saying, especially in a small community that we are, and believe you me, when you're talking about the national political stage and the different issues that are available with the economy, social security, healthcare, foreign policy, there are so many different things that on a major scale, the Second Amendment, as much as we would love for it to be in the spotlight, is not, like Clover said, may not even be in the top 10 of issues that will affect the election. So if we are in the ultimate echo chamber and we are amongst people that we share a culture and share a community and share a passion for, I understand that we're not ever going to agree on everything. And we probably shouldn't have to agree on everything. But understand that we've said this, at least I've said this on so many different occasions. The inside bickering, the inside getting our feelings hurt and just being little bitches about what people are saying because we don't agree with each other. We're allowed to have discussions. We're allowed to talk. We should be talking. We should be having these discussions, but we can't get our feelings hurt and we can't go crying and running away because someone may not agree with this. The problem that I'm having is we look like fools to the outside of the gun community. Once again, they're looking at us saying these guys can't even get along with themselves. They're burning their political strong arm down to the ground for us by the inside bickering. Once again, we're not always going to agree, but I think that we have to understand that somehow, some way, we need to come together as far as our outward perception to the rest of the country, because people do look at us and say, man, they've got a lot of problems. And we've talked about this, Clover's talked, G's talked about, I have. We are giving them fuel to the fire, is maybe as small as the NRA and the gun community may be in the national scene. The last thing that we need is to completely deteriorate the small issue that we are. If we're not going to grow, we sure as hell don't need to minimize our visual presence in the election. Let's see here. Let's go up here. I saw a couple things.
While you're looking,
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I totally agree with that, and this is one beef I've had, not just with the NRA, but a lot in the pro gun, pro firearm, Second Amendment, whatever side of the argument that confuse the support of the Second Amendment with conservatism for some reason, and it's so annoying. It's like, okay, we're pro 2A, shall not be infringed, rah rah, you're my buddy, and then one guy says, well, I believe in a woman's right to choose, and then it's like, oh no, you didn't, and there's this big, who cares? Who flipping freaking cares? Come together on the issues you come together on, and then leave the other stuff to the side. Let's unify on what we can unify on. And I think that's where it's at. Too many people, like I said, are overthinking things a lot of times. And the answer is real simple. If it's a 2A issue, we come together on the 2A issue. It doesn't, outside of that, doesn't matter.
Great point. I got a $5 super chat from Rick Nethery out there saying gun rights are American rights, not political rights. Simplify. Gun rights are natural rights. First of all, they're not American rights. They're natural rights. America just uses or chooses to guarantee those rights in paper. So I'm splitting hairs there. I'm mixing words, but I mean, gun rights and the right to protect yourself is not an American right. That is a natural right that the U.S. government, from the beginning, decided to actually guarantee on paper. Um, that being said, there was Adam Jiminy's out there says, I guess unless you put out that we don't like each other on certain topics. And I think that, I don't think it's any mystery, guys. I don't think that it's a mystery if anyone out there that is anti-gun, if you don't think that anti-gunners are not monitoring what's going on in the gun community, whether it's on social media or whatever, you're crazy. Because the people that understand that, let's just take this for instance. If the gun community, everyone that is amassed in the gun community that was actually active is a one issue voter, you don't think that there's the exact same, if not more, people on the other side that are anti-gun, that are one issue voters? There are a lot of people, we sit there and say, hey, I'm only voting for the person that's going to protect our Second Amendment. That's who I want in the office. There are a lot of people that are the exact opposite. What is it? Newton's law: for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. there's the same amount of people, at least on the other side, saying, I don't care about abortion. I don't care about Social Security. I don't care about foreign policy. I want to elect someone that is going to go after and try to repeal the Second Amendment. So if you don't think those people out there are not monitoring what we're doing with our own community, you're crazy. We don't have to point out that we're not getting along. It's pretty easy to see that the gun community isn't getting along. We are so diverse within our own community. And it's not a bad thing. It really isn't. There's a lot of people that have different values or different passions within our own community. So to sit there and say we should all be the same is ludicrous. But I will sit there and say that our passions need to be focused and centralized when it comes to our outward message about who we are as a community. And whether or not it's the NRA, the GOA, the SAF, FPC, it really doesn't matter. I think that you're talking about a message that we have to get out. And I really want to stress that I think that, Clover, I love what you said, that the Second Amendment is a very small issue in the political arena. And instead of changing or making sure that we're protected, making it a more relevant and a bigger issue is, I love that. I hadn't really thought of it that way, but I love the fact that you sit there and said that we need to make it more of the discussion. If it's not the top 10, let's put it in the top 10. If it's not the top 5, then let's make sure that it is in the top 5. And how do we do that? Well, I think that I was listening to and I hate to call him a wise man, he's going to get a huge head. I was listening to a mediocrely intelligent man last night on an Instagram chat, and he was talking about something that he and I had talked about, and we talked about with other people, but starting from the bottom up, instead of worrying about the national politics of the 2020 election of the president, why don't we start talking about the local, the city council, the justices of the peace, the sheriffs, the county judges, then move to the state level. I know, and I hate to give Clover credit, but I think that is something that we need to look at, is maybe changing the rhetoric of the Second Amendment in the national scheme is to make it relevant first in the state level and the local level. And then it might take 8 years, may take 12 years. But if we're going to make it a relative issue in the national level, shouldn't we be worried about making it relevant in our local politics first? And I'm going to let Clover talk about this first, because he's the one that brought it up last night. I thought it was great, but is that the game plan? Maybe we have to look at the long game 4, 8, 12 years down the road. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely think that's one of the plays. I mean, we've got, the New England Patriots. Well, bad example, because they go into Super Bowls with deflated game balls. We know that. So, but yeah, any other team, let's say, that goes out on Sunday, whatever, and plays, they got a playbook, right? It's called a playbook for a reason. It's because there's multiple plays in there. So this is not here's one answer, this fixes it all. Okay. What we've got to do is we've got like a great head coach is going to do, we've got to cobble together that playbook, right? And we've got to say, okay, what are all of our different plays? And we got to put all those together. And then we've got to say, okay, well, a great wide receiver is not necessarily going to be good in this dime defense we've got here. So what do? I mean, we call in special teams, right? So this is where our individuality plays in. This is where all the different, we've got the 3%ers out there. We've got the queer community out there. We've got the self-proclaimed liberals out there. We've got the PUDs out there. We've got all of these different factions and sections. And that's where they all come into play with certain plays out of that playbook, right? Some are not going to be as good for others. But one of the plays, yes, back on what you're saying, is definitely getting more control. I mean, think about the number of, it was a beautiful thing to see the whole sanctuary city thing turned back around, right? On the left side of the political spectrum. They used it for the immigration thing, and then all the ones that had the more conservative, or even Second Amendment supporting people on the city council kind of turned that around and said, oh, you want to do that, huh? Well, here, take this and see how you like it. And they created the sanctuary cities for, some of these, anti-gun laws or whatever. And then we see the rise of these sheriffs, even in states, like Washington, that are seemingly bad. But the problem is, states like Washington aren't really that bad. It's those major population centers. So when you get the vast majority of, city council members, county officials like the sheriff and things like that in these states, you get an overwhelming majority of them. Why? Because most of them are not inside your high populated, your urban areas, right? So you start turning the tide. We start outnumbering them in a way at that point. Plus, you've got local control. Think about that. You can go down and talk to your city council person, and even at state level, it gets hard to try to talk to your representatives and your elected officials. It's really hard with scheduling and with a lot of other things and travel and you name it. Even on the definitely on the federal level, but for a lot, it's difficult even on the state level. Heck, for me, it's if I'm going to drive to Austin, I live in Texas. It's a long freaking way. So start at that local level, and you can actually go look them in the face. You can get word directly from the horse's mouth. You can directly let them know how you feel, and it works the same way when they're campaigning. I mean, when these elections are going on at the state and federal level, how often do you go to a rally? How often do you get to visit with those that are campaigning? It's very rare, right? But on a local level, you have a lot more access to the people that are actually running, access to ask them the right questions, to see where they stand on certain issues. And then when things start getting disseminated from upon high by those that let's face it, and especially in the with the federal government, the looming bureaucracy that we've got, at this point, for a very long time, they've abused their power, without a doubt. Pretty much all of them, with little exception, right or left, for they pretty much all have abused their power at some point. But when those orders are disseminated from on high like that, then you've got a level of insulation. You've got that level of insulation in your city, county officials, your sheriff, whatever, hopefully bleeding up to the state level, that says, no, the buck stops here. It doesn't come into our city. It doesn't come into our county. It doesn't come into our state. This is not what our people want. So there's no way that our people, you're doing the bidding in the federal government of the people, because our people here don't want that. And so because we're beholden at a local level to our people, we're not going to allow it to happen. So pack up your stuff and get going. So yeah, I think that is part of the play. But another part of the play is getting out the vote and the awareness and encouraging people, that sort of thing. There's several dynamics. Like, first of all is, we've got to be, you said something great earlier, Ghost. You were talking about, and AJ even said in the chat, and I was going to mention this because it plays into it. But, AJ he said something out there. I've got it right here. He says, I need to start putting my thoughts into just one sentence. There was some stuff that was missed. Okay. Social media, these chats on YouTube, these are great for getting a message out, for starting a discussion. G-Web says it all the freaking time. They're great for starting a discussion, right? They're not great for facilitating the discussion. They're really not. And so just like AJ is saying out there, we need to be having real discussions. And I put it out all the time. I'm like, look, I'm open to a telephone conversation, which is a one-on-one. We can spend time. We can banter back and forth. It's a lot different than the gotcha text that we see in social media like Facebook or YouTube or Instagram or whatever. It's very hard to convey context. It's very hard to follow up on things and go, wait a minute, I didn't can you explain this part of that, because I don't understand it. So, it's great that we have these social medias and stuff because they spark that discussion and conversation. But we've got to step up and actually be an active part of not just this community online, but the community at large. And we need to be taking these discussions into the gun shops, into the grocery store, all of that stuff. And then we need to be actually having more conversation and dialogue on these particular things. And I think that's one way that not only we educate people about voting and that playbook that we're building and how to execute said plays and all of that good kind of stuff. But we also, get people to understand that we're real people. We're not just trolls online, but we're real people that care about them, that we care about the community and everything else involved.
Yeah, and there is something to be said about having that direction. And David out there, David Osgood says you're correct. We have no direction and argue about things that we can fix. So I want to bring G Webs in here, and with the Gun Rights Policy Conference coming this September to Phoenix, obviously you'll be there, and I hope a lot of people get there. I'm trying to get there. I know Clover's trying to get there. The Gun Rights Policy Conference is possibly, you're talking at that point basically a year, maybe a little over a year from the election, but you're definitely a year away from the heart after the primaries, the heart of the election with the debates going on. Is there something that could happen possibly the Gun Rights Policy Conference that maybe as a group we could leave that place with a message to then at that point all of the people that are there can now extrapolate that message to the masses through social media? But is that something that we think should happen or could happen at the Gun Rights Policy Conference?
It'd be great. Something to work for. It hasn't happened yet, but it can be done.
And we can come back to G here because someone was talking about Trump and everyone's I like Trump except for the bump stock and some other things. Well, we've got the suppressor thing. Now, as far as the Second Amendment community, obviously there are some people that are one issue voters. I am not one of them. I think most people are not one issue voters, but I think that the Second Amendment is probably amongst the top one or two in our multiple topic voting trends. Do you think that some of the things that have happened in the last couple of years, whether it be the bump stock or eating out of the suppressors and the seemingly willingness to compromise or at least discuss um, against gun rights to get other stuff done, do you think that that could hurt Trump within the next year and a half, as far as losing votes for people that are multi-issue voters who do have a priority of the Second Amendment? Are some of these decisions that he's come up with in the last couple of years, could that hurt him down the line?
Who's that going to?
I was going to you.
Oh, sorry, Clover. Answer this one. I don't think we have to worry about that. In fact, why don't we worry about changing Trump's mind? Why do we have to take that scenario?
Okay, so
but I also want to bash Trump because I need to take the opportunity to bash Trump.
bash Trump, hashtag bash Trump. Well, let me ask you this then. What is a way that the community can force Trump to start changing his mind? I know that there's not.
You're a Marine, so you got to force everybody. Can we ask somebody once in a while? Can we make it appealing? Like, can we make it a better option to do our thing? Like, if we get together and we're like, hey, we'd like to see no NFA, he might do it not because he has to, but because he wants to appeal, to us.
Yeah, that's a solid thought process. Is and that goes to something I was getting ready to touch on. Is as much as we would like to think that the gun community is a peaceful community, not necessarily. I think that there are a lot of people within our community, and every community has them, but within our community that are militant to a certain extent. When I say militant, I'm not saying taking up arms and taking and storming the capitals. I'm saying with their voices and their opinions and their personalities are militant to the fact that if you don't agree with me, you disagree, which means you're my enemy. And I think that part of that thought process and that personality trait is going to hurt us as a community eventually, because sometimes the loudest voices are the ones that are heard, and sometimes the loudest voices are ones that we don't necessarily want heard. So I like the fact you say maybe we should ask, maybe we should do this, make more peaceful. And I'm not saying say kumbaya, play at the campfire and all of that. What I am saying is we need to make sure that if we're having discussions in public, that we are the calm ones. Let the people that may be against us be the irrational ones. Maybe let them be the ones that are howling at the moon. And maybe if we learn to stay calm and present our defense or our points in a rational, calm manner, maybe people will start to see, well, these people aren't necessarily crazy. But I think a lot of it is we have people in our community that are unappealing to the outside, possibly. Clover, I want to bring you in real quick, and I want to ask you a question. Artisan Tony's out there making a point. And he said, when you have half the gun community still wishing Hillary had beat Trump, you will have a hard time moving forward. And I don't want you to necessarily comment on that unless you want to, but do we have a community that is going to have issues moving forward and not being able to look past the bump stock issue or the NRA, and some of them will be blaming Trump for some of the problems that we're having within the community? Is that something that we as a community could be facing as well?
Clover.
Muted. He's muted again.
Oh, is that mine? I don't know the question, Clover.
That's-
I was just the whole time you were.
Yeah,
The
go
real
ahead.
problem is the people that think that orange is better than blue. Those are the real. That's the real problem we have in this community.
Right. I don't know. I agree with the premise that we've got a lot of people that really have a problem letting things go. But I think we got a lot of people that really don't let it go because they're told every day by big wheels on YouTube or big wheels in mainstream media or big wheels on right wing blogs or big wheels on talk radio that they don't need to let it go. I think that's a lot of why they don't let it go, which aggravates the bejesus out of me. And then a lot of those big influences, let's just say, they don't really take the time to break things down and explain it completely. Why? Because drama and controversy is what sells. So why would you explain things rationally to somebody and then give them all the information to make an informed decision when it's easier just to whip them up and let them go? So we've got to not be manipulated. And we especially got to learn not to be manipulated if you've watched that Smarter Everyday stuff that G-Web has talked about or whatever, because a lot of us being manipulated could be happening from a foreign power or a foreign source, literally terrorists. So, I think that's scary, and I think we need to be paying attention to that. And I think we need to practice a little bit of Stone Cold Steve Austin and DTA. Don't trust anybody to an extent. Learn for ourselves and
No,
and educate ourselves.
that gives the terrorist our platform. I hear you, but our goal and our challenge is to go to learn. There's no just simple answer. Otherwise, YouTube and whatever would have solved it. But that's not even tinfoil hat. That's legitimate security issue. To the tune of each of those giant platforms is deleting 1 million accounts a day, 1 million accounts a day, right? And just for what Clover's talking about there. So it's our challenge to figure out how to get past that, to understand what the problem is, to adapt, overcome, and win. Because if we walk away from the internet, if we walk away from the communication with each other, the terrorists win.
Well, I'm not saying we walk away from it. That's not what I was going. I'm saying that we need to question that. We need to be questioning that. And you do that by, multiple sources. You do that by following up with your own homework. Is this fake news or is this real? Is this the whole story or just part of the story?
I want to real quick. Rick sent another $5 super chat. So once again, thank you, brother. But I don't want to read it. What it says. I don't want to read. It says, "Damn right, Clover." We don't need to encourage this guy. He's already got a big enough ego as it is. We do not need to continuously tell him he's right. Anyways,
they really all believe that.
Yeah, sure.
I've got them all fooled. So.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
I don't own any firearms. I'm actually anti-gun. So,
yeah,
I'm fixing to start. G-Webs is doing pizza reviews. I'm fixing to start doing sandwich reviews. Just saying. Yeah,
you've been playing a serious game of devil's advocate for a lot of years. So yeah. Now, Adam out there, AJ has a great question I want to pose to both of you. The question is: so, at last prediction, 42% of Americans own guns. How do we get the message to 42% of Americans? Clover, let's start with you. If we said the best thing we can do is get a consolidated message, how do we get that to 42% of America? Because not everyone's gonna be watching YouTube. I mean, is there a way to do that?
Man, I don't know. That I would say pass to G-Webs on that because he's making some really good efforts with the interviews he's had lately. He's crossing a lot of different mediums with his guests. So I'm going to pass that one to G-Webs right now.
Okay.
So what was the question again? I got a big head. I was trying to.
So basically, it's saying that 42% of Americans own guns, and we've considered and we talked about we need to have a consolidated message as a gun community. The question is how do we get whatever message we come up with? How do we get that message distributed to 42% of Americans?
So be realistic. If it was possible to do that, there would only be Coca-Cola. There would only be Sony, right? That's not a thing that's possible. So realize what's realistic, and then enjoy yourself and share what you do, because they're using the unawareness of what a firearms owner is against us. And anybody who, well, I'm not going to get into it. So just enjoy what you do, contribute, and be part of it. And there's no way that they can stop a million voices that are enjoying every element of all the things that make us different, all the things that the deceivers would have us consider differences and divisions are what make us unique and varied and give us nuance and flavor and make us real. So just enjoy yourself, have fun, learn how to create. It gets easier and easier every day. I know this one guy who always tells people to, get a camera and be part of it, go shooting and share that. Follow that example.
Yeah. And I want to kind of start asking kind of a final question is, at your local level or anything that you might know of people in our community and your friends and all that, is there something that, I'm going to kind of parlay what Clover is saying, now that he's opened the door to saying that we need to make the two-way more of a discussion, what is the first step? What do you think that we can do immediately to get the two-way discussion going? Is it obviously local level at the gun shop level, or do you think it's state level? What do you think we can do to get the two-way issue brought up in the next election? And dead air again.
Was that me or was that G-Web?
Clover, yeah, Clover.
Oh, that was me.
He's busy out there talking.
He just wants to collect a paycheck. He wants me to
I'm telling you.
paraphrase what I say and collect a whole paycheck.
Hey, okay.
I think.
I was busy making a sandwich. I'm sorry. I told you. I start doing sandwich reviews.
Well, basically what I was trying to say is kind of the last question I want to get to tonight is, what can we do to start that fight today?
First of all, I think we have to walk the walk and talk the talk in our regular everyday lives. This means open carrying when we have the opportunity potentially to spark conversation. And then, we've already talked about, we've done it numerous times, talked about right ways and wrong ways to have conversation, but maybe do that to spark conversation. Maybe we're in the doctor's office and there's a Guns and Ammo magazine or there's something like that. Could be an opportunity, but we have to take those opportunities, look for those opportunities wherever we have them in our everyday real lives. I think it starts there. Again, I'm not one to discount the power of all of these social medias, but true societal change starts from within a household, a community, a city, a neighborhood, all the way up. Next is, I think that we've got to go to our local politicians and make sure that our local politicians, why it would be the question. Why do you need to go to your local politicians at all if they're in office, if they're not up for re-election, if whatever? Because they endorse people, right? So, you need to go to those smaller, more local politicians that may endorse people. They may come out and, hey, I endorse the senator or that senator or whatever. And that weighs inside your community, at least, that weighs on people and they're more likely to vote. So if you can talk to persuade, make sure that a local politician is on board with endorsing a pro 2A candidate, then that can help push that narrative and that conversation as well. And then like I said, the social media is a huge thing, but I think we have to use any and all methods at our disposal. So I think we need to, look at records and we need to scrutinize. I've done it with my senator here in the state, and I will continue to do so. He has been a Fairly good Pro 2A guy for a very long time, and he lost his absolute freaking mind this last session. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to. I still have not been able to get an answer, find an answer, or even get a meeting with him. With his, like I said, that's kind of strange, and probably because he's scared of me. Yeah, I'm going to say it. But um, he's scared of the conversation, I should say, because I don't think he has a Weasley politician way to get out of it. But yeah, I mean, you've got. I forgot where I was necessarily going with that, but I guess what I'm saying is you've got politicians that may do very well, but when they slip up, we need to call them on it. Is where I'm going with that. So when you've got candidates, yes, they may be the best Pro 2A candidate, but don't be afraid to call their flaws on it either. To let them know that, okay, I'm going with you because you're the Pro 2A candidate. However, I'm also going to let people know that you've dropped the ball in the past on this, this, and this. All the chips are going to be on the table. You know, I'm going to vote for you, and I'm going to give you the opportunity since you're 80% pro gun. And another thing, do not, please, for the love of God, your state. I don't know if other states work this way as far as state organizations, but I know that the NRA works this way, and I know that the Texas State Rifle Association works this way. Please, for the love of God, do not vote for people based on their rating or their endorsement from a gun lobby or a gun organization. Please don't. At least not until you understand how that rating is made, because the state level and the NRA, when you've got a new candidate or you've got a candidate that really doesn't have a record on 2A, they may be by far the most pro 2A candidate. In their rhetoric is great, and you may know them even personally, and you're like, hey, this dude is an awesome 2A person. But because that entrenched politician or whatever has been 2 terms in whatever seat he's in and actually voted on stuff, they may only be 50% pro 2A. But because they actually have a record, that's the way that some of these organizations distinguish who they're going to get behind. Because, well, the new guy, the guy running against him, the challenger, he doesn't have a record. Instead of diving into people's past and putting them on a stage and making them debate it, or something like that to give them the blessing. So be really, really careful about who you vote for. It all goes back to doing that homework on people, right? Don't just take somebody's word and go vote.
Well, and that brings me a great point that I want to start talking about always is, and someone up there, I don't remember who it was. I want to say maybe David. Oh, here it is. Here it is. It says, folks on the right need to watch other channels than Fox News to see what is really happening. It isn't fake just because Trump says so. It's not fake because anyone says so. It's one of those things where it comes down to educating yourself. And Clover and I were talking the other night till, I don't know, 2:30 in the morning on the phone. And part of our discussion was things like this. And I think even Clover brought this up earlier in one of his comments and G did. These chats and these shows and these podcasts, whatever you want to call them, are just a tool to start a conversation. What we say is, and what anyone on social media says, is not the gospel. This is our opinion. This is my opinion. Clover has his, G has his. People have their opinions. And the problem we're having is some of the people that are looked upon as these gurus are just stating their opinion, but they're being looked at as the gospel and the absolute truth. So what I'll say to you is enjoy the entertainment side of these things, but allow these to be a Kickstarter to a bigger conversation. And the biggest thing I can tell you is, yes, watching Fox News, doing, what they call in the debate world, in the political world, you know, you have to be prepared for your opposition. Okay. They call it opposition prep. Understand what they're going to come at us with. Understand what they're saying in their inner circles. Go spy on some of their, it sounds weird, but kind of go and spy and read some of what their groups are saying, their chats are saying, or what their forums are saying. But the whole idea is educating ourselves to where we're not just trying to take one person's word as the gospel, whether it's Trump's or it's mine or Clover or G's or Yankees or anybody else's. Take everyone's perspective to mold your own. And just because someone online that calls himself a quote unquote gun expert or a political expert is saying something doesn't mean it's right. It means that that's their opinion. So take in all the information you can get, whether it's for guns or anti-gun, use all of it, create your own thought process and create your own arguments in details in the fight, because educating ourselves is going to be the most important way to get our message out. Because if we're coming at someone with I want to say an ignorant point of view or a biased point of view, we have to be willing to open our minds to other methods. So I want to bring that. G, I know that you have been doing this for a long, long time, and you are at the forefront of trying to educate people and inspire other people to get involved in the two-way fight, whether it's kind of content creation or just being involved in local politics. What I want to ask you is kind of the final question is this: do you see a point in time in the next year, year and a half before the 2020 election that we will be able to have a discussion online or whatever? And I know we talk about out here is people getting in arguments, and someone said an argument is a debate, and debate is not an argument. There's a debate on what a debate is, ironically. But do you see in the next year, year and a half, our community being able to put aside our own differences to kind of consolidate into one message? Do you see that happening, or is it always going to be divided?
Well, this is awkward because I was going to deliver what I consider to be the only opinion, but you just made it sound like
Oh,
that's
damn it! I just told you that your opinion is only an opinion, so I'm sorry.
so. But anyway, it's not realistic. It's never happened before. Why should we strive for that? We should strive for unity, and we should strive for efficiency and important message. But the the other stuff we're going to mature beyond. So, um, what is the thing about? I don't know. You know, when you anyway, as you mature, you learn. You know what's more important, and you see things as cyclical, and you see things as less significant, or you know, you see things erode, and you see things create, and you see things develop. Right. So with time and with wisdom, an individual gets maturity and gets better perspective. As a community, we're going to do the same thing. So you know, each of these cycles, we can either be spectators or we can work towards changing the paradigm. And if your contribution is to lay down the same arguments that you're laying down 4 years ago, or your contribution is to put stress on the attempt to create unity, then go for it, because this is a free country, and the little petty trifles make us all stronger. And again, as we as a community discover that there's cycles and repetition, we'll discover how to get past that. Ideally, we'll do that faster than the other side, but they have a different strategy. You know, they're throwing lots of money at marketing companies, so they're going to get wins, but our wins will be stronger because we've worked for them. And I don't see any reason why we won't get there. Some people will differ with me on how fast we can get there, but you can either work towards a goal similar to that or fuck off. Excuse me.
Oh, you're fine. Yeah, no, it's all good. Um, there was someone out there that's saying that we lost our clout. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that the gun community has lost our clout. And I think that we have to reestablish it and reinforce it. But I don't think that the inner fighting and the inner issues with the NRA and all of that has changed a whole lot of the clout. The NRA is still there. The NRA might be reeling in some controversy, but the clout's still there. Because here's the thing, it's not the NRA, and people continuously mistaken the NRA is our power. They are the face of our power in the political scheme. The true power in the gun community are the fact that there's over 30 million gun owners in America. 30 million. 30 million gun owners in America, at least. That's what we kind of pretty much know. There's probably a lot more than that. You're talking about a number of people that putting their collective minds together. People, and we talked about this before, people talk about these million man marches. Well, actually, it's probably more like maybe 200,000 were marching. You put 30 million people in a consolidated effort on anything, I don't care what organization you have, that's some serious power. So I think instead of saying, let's wait for the NRA to do this to change, we need to change the NRA. We need to no, I think that the NRA does need to change. I think there are people in the NRA that need to be gone. I think there are policies that need to be changed. I think that there are administrative issues within the NRA that need to be changed. But honest to God, what really needs to change in our community is us. We have to sit there and say that the 30 million gun owners in America, if we come together on one issue, if we really want the NFA repealed, 30 million people get together and start making some changes in the election booths, I promise you, it's going to be very, very powerful. 30 million people saying anything in unison is going to make the world shift just a little bit. So we've had some really good conversations, and I don't think we're ever going to answer these. All we're going to talk about is what we think we can do, what we think we should try. And the reason why I brought this up now was not because I want to get people thinking that the election is coming. It has absolutely nothing to do with the election. The true reason that I wanted to bring this up now is we're a year and a half away. So whatever we want to try to start doing, preparing for the summer of 2020, it's not going to happen overnight. So we need to start working on whatever it is, the message, whatever the behind the scene things that we want to start getting done needs to start preparing now. Because once November hits and we are truly inside a year of the election day, of Super Tuesday, then guess what? If we haven't already started preparing for our message and our what we're going to do, either locally, statewide, or at the federal level, then it's too late. So yes, we are a year and a half away, but we've got to start making those preparations now. And it sounds crazy, but it's going to take a long time for people to get ready to go. So if we wait till 2020 to hit, we wait till the year from now in June, it's way too late. We need to start preparing now. So whatever you plan on doing, whatever you're wanting to try to do, either at the local, state, or federal level, whatever those plans are, you got to start preparing now. I want to bring G and Clover back in. Thanks, guys, for always joining. I love you guys, and we always have great discussions. G, I want to bring you in real quick and talk about some of the projects that you're working on. Do you have anything you want to plug right now?
I am plugging in the toaster oven because I'm out of here. I am discouraged by all the meanness, and I'm going to quit because that's the only way to win, is to not do anything and mope. So I'm going to make pizza reviews, mostly frozen pizza, but occasionally I'll rag on a calzones with a 9mm of pizza.
So you're going to make pizza reviews. Clover's going to do sandwich reviews. I'm thinking maybe Japanese food reviews, some sushi reviews for me.
That's racist. Super racist. You can't do that.
Racist. My wife's Japanese. I can say that. So no, I think that the food discussion is that's kidding. Let's not go there. But I know that you've got some good stuff on the board. I want to say something about you real quick. And Clover and I were talking the other night. I have really, really enjoyed what you're doing with bringing different two-way community personalities onto your channel and giving them an hour to talk. If you guys haven't go watch them, please go over to Gun Website's YouTube channel, and there's some phenomenal interviews he's doing at least a couple times a week, sometimes 3 or 4 days a week, depending when he can get them scheduled. But I want to say to you, G, I love this series. I've really enjoyed getting to know a lot of these people that I knew, but I didn't really know the back history and all that. So thank you for doing that. And I want to say, who do you have coming up that people might want to be looking out for?
What's today? Tuesday? So somebody tomorrow, and then Thursday, Jared and Jeff Knox and We Like Shooting and Pincus, maybe another person on the NRA talk. We'll chat it. We'll fix the NRA on Thursday. And then Liberty Doll on Monday. What did I get for Tuesday?
While you're looking,
Yeah, KD and Ken are going to come on Tuesday and do an after action for their event. And then Aaron.
Who?
Huh?
KD and who?
Ken and KD from their event.
Practice, sure.
I don't know if we're breaking up. And then I got Aaron on Wednesday. And then a couple more, you know how it is, trying to keep them juggled. Those are all the ones that are secure. So I want to say thanks to my Patreons who are the ones that make that possible. So if you want to throw a cup of coffee at me, then that would be very appreciated because I'm less than running on fumes. I'll keep doing it as long as I possibly can.
We appreciate you. Rod GunStreamer says Ghost just bought his second Canic. Man, I tell you what, I'm a Canic fanboy at this point. It's a badass gun. Now, Adam Jiminy's out there wants to know, are you going to be able to get Maj on there? He's interested in seeing Maj on your program.
I probably could. He's out there always doing stuff. I haven't ever talked to him before, though. Have you guys talked to him?
Yeah, I can get you in contact if you want. I'm sure he'd love to, especially right now when he's talking about, running for city council and all that stuff. So, I mean, but yeah, Maj is always.
Well, the thing is, he was on with Hickok yesterday, and we're supposed to bicker. And also, I've been told that I'm too large a channel to talk about political stuff. So maybe if he wants to talk pizza or like Philadelphia pizza, maybe.
Well, let me ask you this: someone out there is talking about who's going to do the reviews for Hot Pockets, and is Hot Pocket a pizza or a sandwich? So maybe you could talk about that
It's a sandwich. It's a sandwich, a tiny sandwich. It's not the size of the sandwich. It's the amount that there's a whole
cheesesteak Hot Pocket. Since he's from Philly, that'd be a good one. No, Maj is a great guy. I love to see him on there. Clover, I know you don't have a whole lot going on, but for what you are doing, is there anything going to be coming down the pipe?
Well, I've got several things. I want to follow up on a couple of things that was said, and I guess kind of, just a couple of warnings and then call to action. First of all, when you were talking about, people in media, wherever they might be, remember a couple things. Remember that you have pundits and you have news anchors. Doesn't matter if it's Fox News, doesn't matter if it's YouTube, doesn't matter if it's talk radio, doesn't matter what it is, right? You have people that give opinion, and then you have people that tell you the news, and it's two totally different things. And a lot of times those two get confused. So make sure you know who you're listening to. Second thing, it's sort of a challenge. You were talking about, somebody was about always looking at the other side. And AJ out there in the chat mentioned, I had a little back and forth with him about using some of the left's tactics. And with that, has anybody ever read Rules for Radicals? Because that is dedicated to Satan. I get that when you first read it. So a lot of people are not going to pick that book up and read it. But that's a playbook that's been ran on us for a very, very, very long time. And there's some things in there I think that, yes, can be tweaked and, yes, can be used against us, used in our favor, rather, used against them. Conversation for a different time, but just a challenge that somebody may pick that up and start reading it. And then to follow up on what G-Webs was saying there. I heard a conversation earlier. It had to do with Brownells buying out ARFCOM. And they were like, well, more companies need to invest in these platforms and do all this. And my question is, the people that are using these platforms, that are getting information from these platforms, that are engaging in these platforms, what are you doing to support things? Do you support people on Patreon? If so, how many? Is it enough? Is it not enough? Is it, just throwing that question out there and saying, think about that a little bit. And then finally, if you're talking about another thing, and this is actually directly related to my channel, and then I'll stop. But we were talking earlier about what do we do on the grassroots level, what do we do on the ground level, how do we get people involved, this, that, and the other. I've got Firearm Friday on deck with Aaron Paulette, which is the founder of Blazing Swords. If you're not familiar with that, that is the more or less the training arm of Pink Pistols. So the training arm for the queer community out there. So um, what I would invite people to do first of all is go over to the Blazing Swords website.
I'm putting the
Look
link
at
out
the
there right now.
Look at
Very
the
cool.
training opportunity. I talked to Ghost about this with all the training he advocates. You don't have to be certified and all that to get in their database and be a trainer. So if you like firearms, if you like spreading the Second Amendment, if you like educating people on the safety of firearms and the mechanical aspects and all this other stuff, and you're comfortable with potentially somebody from the queer community contacting you, meeting you at a range, and explaining things to them, yeah, you can get on board over there as one of their instructors, get in their database, you'll be in their map. And who knows, you may bring some more people into the community that way. So if you're looking at a way that you can volunteer maybe a little bit of time, uh, plus go out to the range, have fun, shoot, potentially teach somebody something new, that's a good way to do it. And if you want to know more, like I said, that podcast will drop Friday with Aaron Paulette.
Awesome stuff. Yeah, as far as our channel, we've got obviously different reviews coming out. Tomorrow morning, I'm gonna be releasing. I'm trying to start doing things a little bit differently. Tomorrow instead of on Sunday, tomorrow I will be releasing the latest Armed Citizen podcast. I had to take a little hiatus. A lot of people know what's going on with family, but time is starting to get ready to get a little bit better for me. We've moved my father about 5 minutes from the house instead of an hour away to where now we can see him a lot closer. So I have a lot more time. So I've already recorded 4 podcasts in the last week. So they'll be start coming out a little more frequently. But tomorrow's podcast is with, it's a fun one. If you guys are sports fans and you watch football or did watch football, you might remember the name Mitch Mustang. And Mitch Mustang was a #1 high school player in America, #1 recruit in America. He's from here in Arkansas. He's moved out to Arizona now, but he played a year at Arkansas, then transferred to USC back when USC was in their heyday. So you might remember Mitch Mustang, played professional football, played a little bit of professional baseball. And there is a documentary on Mitch over on either Netflix or on Amazon Prime. I can't remember which one it was. And I was watching it, flipped through it. I was like, oh, crap, Mitch Mustang. Wow. Watched it. And part of his interview, he was in a garage and there was a bunch of guns on this back wall. And I was like, holy shit, he's a gun guy. So I reached out to him. I never met him. Reached out to him, asked if he wanted to be on the podcast. He said, hell yeah. We spent a couple hours on the phone and I whittled it down to about a 45-minute podcast. And I actually got the other part of it's going to be another podcast down the line. But if you guys are interested in hearing what an athlete who seemingly a lot of people think that athletes are so focused and so arrogant and self-centered that they don't take the time to be in a community and learn new things and put themselves out there to talk about their passions. And his passion is guns. He got out of professional sports, got his training in EMT. He's not doing EMT, but he still keeps his certification up. He goes to training. He's worked with a training group out in Phoenix. He's been a bounty hunter. He's done competitive shooting. He's done a lot of things that include firearms, and it's a wonderful conversation. You get to see the other side of what athletes are. They are athletes. They are in this limelight. Like he said, he's played in front of 100,000 people, millions of people on the TV, but his passions were guns, and people don't see that about our athletes. So if you're interested, it will be up on all of our podcasting channels on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Google, Apple. I mean, everywhere. I've played on like 17 different podcast platforms. That'll be up tomorrow morning over on those. So go check that out. It's a pretty cool interview. So go check them
So
out. And, yeah.
you're saying that you just took it upon yourself to contact a guy and ask him if he wanted to be part of your project, and the guy said yes, and now he's part of your project, and it was a good interview.
Yeah, it was one of those things where I mean that's how it's supposed to happen, isn't it? I mean, if we're and I'm being very facetious, but no, for anybody out there that are trying to get involved in this whole media game of the firearms community, you have to be willing to be told no. You have to be willing to put yourself out there. And some of my very close friends that are in the gun community are there because I reached out to them and asked if they wanted to be on a podcast or they wanted to do that. they weren't people that I knew forever. They people that I've known for, maybe a year now. But now we talk all the time, multiple times a week. Obviously, Clover and G are some of my closest friends. I didn't know these guys.
I literally said, no, I don't want to be on the podcast today. I got
it many times. And the only reason why he's on now is because I am paying him to be on this podcast now. But yeah, and Clover's out there says, asking you shall receive. And I'm sure that, G, when you're going through these projects, you probably send out a lot of different feelers and a lot of people, and the ones that respond and say yes, that's great. But how many times have you been told no over the years? It's probably, I mean, we've all been told no hundreds of times,
So here's an interesting story. I don't know the whole thing, but here's it in a nutshell. That Colonel Sanders was like, am I crazy? Or was he like, he was in his 60s or something when he started figuring out he wanted to do the fried chicken thing. He went to 100 franchise places trying to sell his chicken, and he got told a no 100 times. And the moral of the story is look at Kentucky Fried Chicken. So old guy, many careers, got told 100 times no, but he liked the idea and he kept shopping it. And now there's Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC.
Yeah, and that's a great American story. But no, as far as the podcasting and all that, and we say it all the time, get out there and shoot, be proficient, train often, train safely, be everyday warrior, all of that stuff. Turn the cameras on, be part of the community, be part of the solution, not the problem. But understand the part of it is you're going to have to check egos at the door. You're going to have to understand that it's kind of like baseball. If a baseball player hits 300, which is 3 out of 10, if he's successful 30% of the time, he's a Hall of Famer. I could take that same analogy and put it, if you're trying to get into podcasting and trying to get guests on different things or whatever, and you get 3 out of 10 people to say yes, they come on a podcast,
that's
massive. You're a Hall of Famer.
Man, that's massive. I can vouch for that. Yeah.
Massive. Yes. So it's one of those things, but like I said, go check that out. And thanks to Mitch for coming on. Thanks for Clover and G for always, doing this with me. I really enjoy you guys and your perspectives and sometimes the humor that we have. Thank you for everyone that's watching live. Obviously, thank you to everyone who's watching and listening in replay. If you have any questions or comments, please use a comment section below. And I'm going to use what Johnny hates this. It's one of his pet peeves. I'm going to say, if you like what you're hearing or seeing, subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment, share it, all that good stuff. We're talking about spreading our message as a 2A community. The power of a share is massive.
Hold on. Who doesn't like it when you say that?
Oh, Johnny says it's one of his biggest pet peeves is always hearing say, hey, make sure you subscribe, like, and, and all that. And I get it. Sometimes it gets annoying. But I think the share is extremely important. Sharing is extremely important. So,
yeah, if we think of our internet as a television or some sort of like something that's owed to us, then we deserve what we get. But understanding that we use the internet instead of watching television or watching cable or watching a movie, right? When they give you those exit surveys at a movie, how'd you like the coming attractions? That's vital because they want that interaction. We have that interaction. There's people making, look at Google. It's one of the largest companies on the planet because they understand the usefulness of the accumulation of intent by a bunch of viewers, right? They look at your viewing habits and they sell that, right? That's what it's a long way of saying they look at your viewing habits and they sell that. You can be deliberate on the internet. It's not like watching television. The best you can do when you're watching television or movies, like buy a DVD and then you somehow show up as a pip somewhere that your DVD was purchased and some money was contributed to the overall box office. On the internet, we work in information and in organization. So understanding that as a viewer, you are a participant, that's empowering. And if you let your audience walk away, then are you truly empowering your audience? If you discourage them from that concept that you have power, like you say, with the share, that's incredible. That's called a reciprocal link. Go look it up. Like that is how the internet works. That's when the robots and the stuff that watch the internet and the people that pay for internet time,
they use those kind of characteristics as indications of what's vital and what's useful on the internet. Political strategists use that information to decide what issues to focus on, and what percentage of time to spend on different issues. So by participating in the internet, you're affecting change. To belittle that is ignorant or deceptive or deliberately trying to stifle people's contribution to what we've got on the internet.
Yeah. That's a great way of closing this down. So thank you for always hanging out with us every Tuesday night, Tactical Tuesday. We shall see you next week. Semper Fi.